It's the show that's wishing you a very happy Memorial Day. It's the first hour of First Things First. Okay.
You gotta there you go. You gotta let it drip into your beard.
Goodness gracious.
All into the beard on your tie.
Hello came through. How'd your guy do?
My guy didn't even.
My guy was fine.
He was done
What do you
before
mean?
it started.
They both finished dead last.
No, more people are getting moved dead last.
Did your guy complete 200 laps?
No.
Did your guy complete 200 laps? No.
2 laps.
Tried his best, though. He's burping during the sound
If he's not here during the D
We're
block,
not on
you
the
know
air.
why.
Just keep it between us.
Drank too much milk.
It's for the audience.
Could you drink a little bit of milk?
Go ahead.
Brew, what was the #1 reason the Knicks came back?
You saw him on the screen. Karl Anthony Towns. I got to give him his love. Give him his props. He woke up. This was turning into a disastrous game for Karl Anthony Towns. The Knicks in general, but him in particular. Had this kind of continued to go the way it did through most of the first 3 quarters of the game, man, New Yorkers would have been all over Cat. He had 4 points. He had 4 turnovers. 7 rebounds is fine through the first 3 quarters.
Yep.
Okay, so this is they're losing essentially a must-win. They're about to go down 3-0. He doesn't show up. He would get drilled. If not, there'd be calls for them to move him in the offseason. Instead, he answers the call. 20 points in the 4th quarter. On record, only the second Knick to go 20 or more in a quarter. Jalen Brunson did it last year. It only goes back to like 97, so maybe Ewing or somebody did it before that. But he drove to the basket. He was aggressive. He hit threes. He got to the foul line. Look, nobody on the Pacers, with all due respect to Miles Turner and Bradley and Siakam, nobody should be able to hold Cat. And Nick, you did your rankings, which I agree with. Cat's the 3rd best player in the series.
Yeah.
He should be the best. He has the best pedigree of all of them.
Number
he
one
should be ahead of Halliburton. He should be ahead of Brunson. And last night, you joked about it before the show. Why doesn't he play like this all the time? We get it. You're not going to score 20 in a quarter all the time. But he's got to stay aggressive.
Yep.
And the thing is, they're not better without Jalen Brunson. No one with a brain would think that. But it's interesting that their 2 game-turning runs in this series, game 1, 4th quarter, Brunson's out with foul trouble. They're going to 14-0 run to take control. The last game last night, they make their run with Brunson out. They were down 13 when he went out with like a minute and a half left in the 3rd quarter. He gets back in early in the 4th. They had gone on a 16-7 run with him on the bench to get within 4, and now it's a ball game.
And then he went out again in the 4th.
And then they scored. Yes. He scored some buckets in the 4th. I just think they need to be less Brunson-centric.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can even change that right now. But in the offseason, should they lose this series, they got to look at, we got more guys than just Jalen who can give us 20.
Well, the flip side of that, and this is something Knick fans I know have been pining for Tibbs to do more of all year, and he kind of had his hand forced into doing it last night, which is when Brunson is out, be more Cat-centric.
Yeah.
Have there be these pockets of time when Brunson is on the bench, and those pockets of time don't turn into, this is when we're going to be the egalitarian offense. No, let Cat really cook in those moments. And so listen, the biggest reason you are correct, but that was not the sole reason, so I want to talk about the other things. I think that starting Mitch, even though it didn't feel like it had the hugest impact, I thought that was smart. It is a first cousin of the point that I've been making all playoffs about the Knicks and Mitch and the hack-a-Mitch strategy and the way that impacts him and the way he plays. You're guaranteed not to deal with that at the start of a quarter. That includes the game, second quarter, half, so I thought that was smart. I also thought him saying, all right, as far as our bench guys I don't really trust, I'll lean on, I'm going to go with the guy who's the better defender in DeLon Wright over offensive player in campaign, was very smart and very useful. And I think that in this instance, the Brunson foul trouble in that specific game did help them, because he was having one of his worst offensive games of the playoffs, and maybe his worst defensive game ever. And so,
they're always going at
right, and they were specifically targeting him, and he was showing no resistance. And then, because he made the joke earlier, before the series, he was like, listen, everyone's a good defender, and then he's like, well, and I take charges. Acknowledging he can't really be the defender he needs to be. He can't even do the take charges thing when he's in foul trouble.
Right.
So he's already a bad defender. You see this happen to Luka sometimes, where it's like, it's one thing to be a bad defender, it's another thing to be a bad defender that's also afraid to foul. Right. Then you're just a turnstile. So in yesterday's game, I thought Brunson going out wasn't necessarily bad for him. I also think that there is something to the fact that Halliburton, the last 2 games, has not been very good. And that are the Knicks wing defenders, I know he's their point guard, but he's not being guarded by the Knicks point guard, are able to slow him down a bit and give him some issues, I think is a really big reason for optimism for the Knicks.
Cat last night, quarters 1 through 3, Brew, you touched on it, only had 4 points. In the fourth quarter, he had 20. It's his second career 20-point fourth quarter, which is basically one of the best quarters of his career. You can make an argument it's the crowning achievement.
No, it's the best moment of his career. There's no question about it.
I don't know. I wasn't ready to go. I saw you crying
probably.
when they beat the, who'd they beat when I had to switch over from the...
You saw me crying?
No, not
Cat.
you crying. Remember Cat when everybody was upset when...
Oh, when they beat Denver?
Yeah.
No, but that wasn't... No, this was...
No, not when they beat Denver. When I was my John Morant when I had to flip over and it wasn't even him. It was Patrick Beverly going crazy.
Oh, yeah. No. This is, I think, the best moment of his career.
I thought he was unbelievable. Once he gets a little bit of confidence and he's doing his finger guns.
Cat is a great talent. He is a great talent. Yeah, and you hear him say it, and this kind of goes to your point, Nick. And I don't want to hear him say this, but he has said, the ball wasn't finding me, or they're not getting. He's not blaming his teammates, but I'm like, you're good enough.
That's right.
Where you go get the ball, or you just decide I'm taking it on this play because you're that level of player. So that's what he did with Brunson out. Probably no coincidence. But he's just got to be that aggressive all game
Just
long.
real quick, yeah. I also think against most teams, and Miles Turner's a good player and Siakam's doing his best, they don't really have anyone that can handle Cat's physicality when he wants to play that way. I think that his great three-point shot, which is great for any player and historically great for a big man. We poke fun at him calling himself the greatest three-point shooting big man of all time. He's in the discussion for it.
If you just true centers.
Right, true centers. You move Durant and Dirk. But in certain matchups, the three ball needs to be his secondary pitch. Like that you understand? Like he needs to make them prove that they can, because he's good at driving to the basket. It's not like he just has to post up and get the ball. He can do it in the fourth quarter last night, which is start at three-point line, then go in. Like, he can do that more often.
Played great. In the West, meanwhile, the Wolves got out to an early lead and ended up routing the Thunder. Ant had 30 as Minnesota won by 42. No eventual champion, Brew, has ever lost by 40. High 30s.
A bunch have lost by 38 and 39, though.
But dating back to 85.
Yeah. But it's crazy that those 3 of the last 4 are teams.
It's a 3-ball.
Yeah. No, you're probably right.
No 85 was the Memorial Day Massacre.
And the Celtics one was while they were up 3-0 in the finals.
Yeah.
That's when they did it.
Brew, are your Wolves back?
Well, first of all, I love SGA, that moment. I mean, that's a leader. That's a great, a guy that stays even-keeled. Like, that was solid. And obviously, you guys know I picked Minnesota. I'm just saying he deserves props, in my opinion, for that.
Felt like a teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I don't know if the teammate he was talking to was like, oh my gosh, we're getting blasted or what, or if it was just a conversation. But to that point, they did get blasted. And to me, that means something. I mean, that graphic speaks for itself, but the Timberwolves they did more than win yesterday. They made a statement, or Saturday. They made a statement. And the statement was, we can impose our will on you. This doesn't happen to OKC. They have this group together. They've only been in the playoffs 2 years. I've harped on that before. They've lost 7 games by a total of the 2 years, 49 points.
Prior to this one.
Prior to this. And now you get in one, you're down 45, lose by 42. They had never lost a game in the playoffs by more than 12 points. And that was twice that happened, only twice by double figures. So it can be in their head that, man, this doesn't happen to us. We got destroyed, but Minnesota got more than a win. They gained a ton of confidence if they needed it. And it was the first game that Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle played well together. That's what has to happen, because when those two are clicking, they probably got 2 of the best 3 players in the series. And so they need those guys to click together. They didn't turn the ball over, which is critical. They turned it over in the first 2 games. They didn't in game 3. That doesn't allow OKC to get out in transition. And then, look, they hit threes. Yeah. First 2 games, 28%. Game 3, 50%. So that's a formula. You got to hit your shots, and you've got to not turn the ball over. If they can do that, they can even this series up tonight.
So they get a benefit tonight from what they did the night before last, which is they are going to be the most rested they're going to feel at any point in the series, where there's no travel and they only had to play a half. So that, to me, is a benefit for Minnesota. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real benefit, which is, I know that they played into the second half, but when you're up 30 at halftime, like, the game's over. And the reason they were able to do that, and where I want to give a ton of credit, is to Anthony Edwards, who also had a growing up moment, which was the first quarter of Game 3. He outscored the Thunder himself in the first quarter of Game 3. They were up 20 at the end of that quarter when he had 16, 5, and 2. And it was Anthony Edwards basically saying, we are not going out like this, and I'm going to give my team a fighting chance in this series. I think you guys know, Wyland said it's confusing for the audience. I'm rooting for Minnesota. I think Oklahoma City is the far better team. But
hedge.
It's not a hedge. It's just the truth.
I was glad it happened. I wanted
that happens sometimes. I know you feel that way sometimes.
Full 30 years broadcasting career.
That was a superstar answer by Anthony Edwards. And the other thing that I think, if you are trying to construct what is a tough narrative's the wrong word, but for a Thunder team that is now, I think, 74-18 on the year, or 78-18 on the year, pardon me, that team is about to lose, 3 of the next 4. Right. Part of it's going to have to be, not only does Ant keep up that, but they do bother Shea. Yes. Like, you know what I mean? Great. Like, they are, Shea is still, because he's great, giving you 27 and 7 a game, but the percentages are 42-27. And, like, I think the Timberwolves will simply say, hey, if in each of every other game the rest of the series, you're going to have 27 points, 7 assists, and you're going to shoot 42-27, we'll sign that contract now. So those are the things that have to happen, but they obviously have to win tonight. And I think they probably have to win similarly, not by 40, but in that they jump out on them early.
So, well, if they blow them out, then now
that's a different story.
But to your Shea point, 10 for 27 in game 1. We know he didn't shoot well in that one. And then game 3, 4 for 13. Yeah. So they do bother him. Like 2 of the 3 games, he hasn't shot well.
Ant averages 35 points in game 4s. It's the most of any player in the history of the NBA.
That's a weird one. The game 4s thing.
It's Ant, Booker, Jordan, Jerry West, and KD. So
some of those, a good number of those have been closeouts for them, right? Because they've had some sweeps. Well, they swept Phoenix last year.
But he should come. Look how muscular Durant looks there. Holy cow!
That is.
You don't want to get rid of that narrative that he couldn't bench.
That does not.
And look how skinny Jordan looks. We have skinny. Must be Jordan or young Jordan. And then, I don't know, Photoshop Durant. Go ahead.
Meanwhile, let's head back to Indy. Palou wins again. He's dominated all year. He's won 5 of the last 6 races. This one, the milkiest, passing Marcus Ericsson, who later got, penalized and basically came in last. 14 laps to go, never lost the lead. Nick, you called this one. Palou is your guy and a friend of the show. He'll be on tomorrow. But you did call this.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, the guy, going into Indy, they had run 5 races. He had won 4 of them. He came in second in the other one. This idea, no.
If I called that, you'd be like,
well, no,
Captain
you went.
Easy stance would have been all on the screen.
Except you were
5 or 6 races.
but the narrative around him was that he couldn't win on ovals. And listen, I think the audience knows it's not as if this show or we have been decades-long diehard IndyCar fans, but when we knew we were going there, you start researching it, you start talking to people, start learning more things about it. And Palou should have won this race a couple years ago. And on pit road, a Dutch driver who was damn near in last place spun out and clipped him. Or else he probably... So the reason I kept bringing that up when we were out there was it's not as if he had always just done terribly at the Indy 500. He was in a position where he probably was going to win it a few years ago. So you had all of that. You then had the added element, which is the only driver who you maybe could argue is better than him on merit at this racetrack in particular, was starting in dead last.
Yeah, dead last. Right.
And that
wasn't great.
And that was Newgarden. And by the way, he made a nice push.
Yeah.
Like, he made it look like he was going to have a real fighting chance. But, yeah. So, my number 1 guy won. My second guy, Sato, led the most laps. I'm basically, added to the list IndyCar expert.
Our friend of the show, Kyle Kirkwood, he improved the most from the poll. He improved 17 spots, but then he also got
disqualified.
Hit with some sort of violation. He's in the back.
Tough day for Kyle Larson. Going for the double.
Yeah.
Didn't finish in Indy, didn't finish in Charlotte.
He says he might not do it again.
Oh,
well,
really?
he's tried twice.
Yeah.
What did you think of? I want to hear what you thought of Newgarden's performance.
I thought it was a valiant performance. He didn't throw his team under the bus.
Wild.
But there was an element where he's like, team sport. It was a little bit like
throwing your team under the bus.
No, but he's like, it's a team sport.
Can I?
I don't know enough about IndyCar to say he threw the team under the bus.
What do you mean? Do you know enough about people?
If SGA scores 41 tonight on great shooting, and they get beaten by 12, and they ask him what went wrong, and he's like,
"Hey, team sport.
Team sport.
It's a team
know?
sport."
But hold on.
What would you think?
SGA is, I don't even think, the right example. I think it's if Carlos Alcaraz underperforms at the French Open.
No, that's
and
not
then is
what
like,
it's like
listen,
at all.
Wait,
That's
what do you
not
mean?
what it's
They
like
have a
at
team?
all.
They have a team?
You're not even allowed to
coaches,
coach.
trainers.
I would say that's different.
Horrid
That is
example.
different.
Okay.
That's one of the worst examples I've ever heard on the show. They got to carry their own bags back.
To Wilds' point, Newgarden does have a point.
Oh, yeah.
If your guys in the pit crew don't take care of business,
right, which is why
it's like SGA scored 100.
No.
Man,
no,
it was 108, 104.
Listen, and that's why, and we saw that amazing.
He would be right, actually, right?
We saw that amazing trophy when we were out there, and that's why they carve all of the team members' faces on the trophy.
Hey, it is.
Not just the. No, they don't. They carve the driver's face on the trophy.
Well, what are you going to put? How big do you want the trophy?
I was about to say, I was like,
how big do you want the trophy?
KW,
30 people on the trophy?
This is, hold on.
Think it'll be as big as a building.
KW,
it's been 109 years.
You know that him having the car malfunction the way it did, and then right after the race saying it's a team sport, is unequivocally, maybe it's right as Bruce said it, throwing his team under the bus. You know that. Just because you talked to him for 5 minutes 2 days ago doesn't mean you can't admit it.
He has a high,
He threw it.
He didn't throw the team under the bus. Not throwing the team under the bus. If the team didn't do a good job, I got to drive the car. I'm not in charge of everything else.
But
you already screwed me over with the attenuators.
We know that. Everybody in IndyCar, every fan knows that. You don't need to say it.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.